Okay, right, let's get some music on. Let's go for some of that. There we go. And I will just get my reference picture up. 2 seconds. Sorry, I'm only a couple of minutes late, guys. Had some technical difficulties with the camera, but we're there now, so we should be fine. We're being well. There we go. Right. Just wait for everybody to turn up. Hi, Bee. So, going to do something a little bit different today. So, I'm going to start off by doing the drawing first on the easel, and then when we switch to watercolours, I will lay it flat and adjust the camera slightly just so I've got it a bit better. It's just if I lay this flat while drawing, the image would become distorted. It's a big arty no-no. So, yeah, not ideal. I'll give you a wee little tour quickly of what watercolours and stuff I'm going to be using. So, got a candle here. Don't think I'm going to light it. It's going to get too warm. We've got my water in there, unfortunately in a teacup, which means I am inevitably going to dip my brush in the wrong cup. Teacup is down there, away from everything, so I'm hoping that should be fine. Let's just adjust this a wee bit more. Oops, that's a bit too far. There we go. Get everything sorted. There we go. Some spare blotting paper down there. Yeah, and then I'm going to be using, I've got some spare paper because I want to show some blending techniques that I'm going to be doing. And then I've got my watercolour pans here as well. So I don't know if I can get those nice and close to show you. Don't judge me for how messy this is. For some reason, it doesn't matter how much I scrub this, some of it just doesn't go away. So it's a messy palette. It actually came with just these colours, this row here, and this one, and these are ones that I've purchased, which are more mica powder based pigments than they are watercolours really. So there's this one, which is Christmas red. I don't know if it's going to focus or not. Show it off really as well as it could. But that is one of my favourites. It's a beautiful one. It's a really rich red, almost like a blood red. And then the one you see me use a lot for, I need to get a new one actually, for doing gold highlights is this one. You can see the sheen on it and how much of it I've used. But yeah, this one is from Thunder Sky Arts, and she's, honestly, she's fantastic. She makes such beautiful pigments. She made that one. Yeah, any of these square ones she made, they're all absolutely gorgeous. So anyway, enough getting overly excited about paints, and let's get this sketch going ever so slightly. So just trying to think of the best way to demonstrate this really. So the reference I'm going to be using I've got on the screen just above me here, so I won't show you that, and then you can't judge me if it's inaccurate. Ha ha ha. So yeah, what I thought I'd do is I thought I would start off actually sort of sketching out the image itself, just so I can sort of show you how I go about that. So start to finish. I can't talk today, I'm so tired. So when I start a picture, especially if it's on a smaller scale, like I like to work a bit bigger than A4, but this was ideal for streaming, and even this is a bit big, really. But I thought it'd be a good size to show off what I'm going to be doing. What I like to do is just try and use basic shapes to form the main structure first, and then I'll do another layer of trying to get the details in as well. So, and B, I know you probably know all this already, but just in case anyone watches it at a sort of absolute starting point, really. So at this point, I'm not even worrying about any details. I just want to make sure that it's all going to fit on the page as I want it to. This fella's got massive ears. I know hares have big ears, but this one's got massive ones. Huge. Okay. Right, so there we are. And again, the reason that I've got it up like this instead of down is because if you lay your sketchbook down like this, like you lay it flat and you start drawing like this, the moment you pull it upwards, that's all going to distort because you've been drawing it at an angle. So it's best to have it almost at eye level and then work from there, really. And then you can always, what I tend to do is once I've done this bit and I've got all the proportions sorted, then I can lay it flat and do the watercolours and colours and things, because the proportions have already been established, so I can work off those. Right, now that I've got this basic shape, let's just enlarge that nose a little bit. It's a wee bit small. It's a bit narrow. So just correct that. The paper I'm using today is a your run-of-the-mill watercolour paper. It's quite thick. It's 300 GSM. That's a really good one to get started with. It's quite forgiving. Yeah, so now what I like to do is I like to start off with placing the eye first. That tends to give me an idea of where everything else sits because I can work around it. So this one's got quite a wide eye. Now I've got that, I can use that to look at all the other details and make them match together. So they always have this little structure under their eye, which is where the socket is. So it's always really important to get that established. And then from that I can tell this goes up a bit more. Then there's like a little triangle section here, which tends to be the shadow. So I'm just going to follow that along. And the nose starts there. You see why. Now with hares, not always with rabbits in particular, but hares have this almost like a double section to their muzzle. So they've got this bit here, but then they have quite a pronounced triangular area here in their structure because they're a lot leaner than rabbits are. This tends to get puffed up a bit when you look at rabbits. So it's not severe, but these guys are quite sinewy in comparison to rabbits, which tend to be a fair bit fluffier. And you may find while you're doing this that areas that you've already sketched in with that shape don't quite make sense. Like here I can see the ears are meant to come down a bit further this way, so that's something I'm going to correct now. But that's where starting off with the eye really, really helps. Because it tends to give you an idea of the bone structure. And it's a good starting point because it's so easy, especially when you're doing wildlife art or any sort of animal art, it's very easy to look at it and go, where the hell do I start? Basic shape, then that's where you start. It saves you a lot of time and a lot of frustration in the future. Now this one certainly isn't going to be a masterpiece by the end of it, because I'm trying to do it in a allotted time and trying to explain things as I go, which for some reason always doesn't make the work as good as it could be. It's very odd. Right, there we go. So we've got a basic idea of our hair there. What I also like to do is, before I add the watercolours and start getting in with colour, is sort of block in sections of the fur that are distinctive and to sort of give a hint of where the direction goes. I find it does help later on. Right, so if I just show you that quickly. I've got a really dry throat. Hang on, just have a quick sip of tea quickly. So now we have this. You can see there where I've used just some very faint lines just to give myself an outline of where all the fur is going to lie. So what I'll do now is lay that down there. Now, can we see that all right, or do we need raising up a bit? Oh, excuse camera work. Right. We're getting there. We're getting there slowly. Just a second. Let's see if I can zoom us in a wee bit more. Let me see. Let's get us in about there. Looks alright, doesn't it? Yeah, stay about there. That should help us a little bit. There we go. Well, yeah, I've put the daylight light on as opposed to the yellow light that I usually use. When you're doing black and white, colour doesn't really matter so much, but with this I wanted to make sure that I used as close to natural light as I could, so I can show off the colours and show exactly what I'm doing. So first thing you're going to do is we're going to do a very, very light wash over this, and I mean really light and really quite dry. You don't want to put a lot on there. So for this I am going to use, let me just give you an example of what I mean. I put it straight on the paper. So really dry, even though you're dipping that into the water, really dry it off. I'm going to go for this one over here. So you want something that's really even lighter than that, really. That sort of consistency. You can barely see it, but it's going to be our starting point. So you can see how translucent that is. So we're going to use this colour, which I believe is an ochre of some description. It's a really dark ochre, but when watered down it almost goes into like a really rich yellow ochre. So we're going to do that first. Now lots of people tell you not to rotate your brush around and go crazy with it. It's entirely up to you. This is a technique that I use. It works for me. I know it doesn't work for everybody. So you can see I'm only just really adding colour to this. There's not a lot of it going on. Oh, it 100% damages the brushes. It 100% does. But my brushes do seem to last a long time, even though it's said to damage them. It's quite rare that I need to replace a brush, even with a lot of use like this. And I'm not pressing down super hard, I'm just rotating in quite a broad manner, which tends to pull all the fibres together anyway. Isn't too bad, but yes, if you are worried about your brushes, then just do a gentle one-sided motion. Don't do what I do. So the reason I'm doing this is just so when we come to be putting our colour on, we just don't have direct white underneath. Just having white underneath will show up a multitude of any errors or gaps in the paintwork and things like that. So just having a very basic wash underneath does help sort of enrich your colours further down the line. The pencil I've used is quite water soluble as well, so all those heavier sketch lines that I've done will gradually disappear as I'm drawing. There we go. Let me just show that quickly. There you go, look. You see how pale that is? So it's next to nothing really and quite blotchy, but it just gives an idea. I've taken a quick look at the picture, and where the shade's quite dark is where I've put a bit more concentration into the colour. So with everything, there are general rules to watercolour. I tend not to abide by them too much. So the stuff I'm going to be showing today is literally the stuff that I find that works for me. It's not going to work for everybody, but I'm hoping that it might just make watercolours a bit less scary. It's fine to experiment, it's fine to play around. So where did my reference go? There it is. Oh, I see what's happened. Okay. Give me 2 seconds. It's opened it up as a web page instead of actually opening up on my desktop, which is rather annoying. So I should be able to open it up as is now. Yes, there we go. Which means that I can see the stream at the same time. Useful. Very, very useful. Right. I also need to stop talking to myself so much. Yeah. There we go. So with this watercolour paper, as you can see, it's pretty much dried already. So watercolour paper has got lots of interlocking in it. If you look really closely, I won't be able to pick it up on the camera, but the fibres are quite tightly woven together, which means they absorb more water. That's how watercolour paper works. It means that it can absorb a lot more, you can put more layers on, it's just a bit more forgiving. So the first thing I'm going to do with this is I'm going to start off with my darker colours, and then but use a similar technique as I did with the ink work that I did before in the last stream, where I'm using those shadows to create a natural highlight instead. So it's just doing it with colour now this time. So where's my teeny tiny brush? There's my teeny tiny brush. Okay, it's not that teeny tiny actually. It's pretty average, but yeah. So once we get onto these colours, I want to try and mix them a little bit. I don't want to be doing just straightforward from the pan. It doesn't always look great. This does take time and does take a bit of experimentation and learning. See, that brown is really red. That's almost a madder brown. So what I'd want instead is to make a bit of navy to that and just bring it down. So I can get a nice dark blue, not a rich blue, just a dark navy or something like that, and just add it to that madder brown, and it makes this lovely sort of muted brown instead, which is what we're going to be using for our darker tones. So what I will do is I'll make a small collection of that just on my palette here. So we'll start off with the madder brown, really, really saturate that brush, put it onto your palette. I'm going to do a couple of those, just so I've got plenty. get some of that dark navy blue, which you can tell I can use a lot because there's a hole in it. Need to replace it soon. And just mould those two together. A little bit more, I think. So a general rule of thumb that I find really useful is that if you're trying to warm a colour up, use a if you're trying if you're trying to warm a cold colour up, use a warm tone. So with the Madder Brown, that's very much a warm tone. It's got lots of red hues in it. So I'm using a cool blue in order to balance it out and get that more neutral tone. So if I wanted something that had quite a cool tone, say the blue, and I wanted to get a bit of a richer, more ultraviolet, then I'd add a really rich, warm red. So like maybe this one here. I'd probably add that one to the cool blue to get a really lovely, lush purple. There's a little hint there. Right, so we are ready to start putting these darker colours in. And again, I'm going to start at the eye like I usually do. Now, like I said before, this isn't necessarily going to be the best piece that I ever do, because I'm just trying to give examples, really, more than anything. So, and with this, don't worry about putting in every single tiny hair. We're not going to do that here. You could be here for ages with an absolute minuscule brush and be putting in all those individual hairs, but we're just blocking in clumps of hair at the moment. I can probably give you an example that if you don't have an ultra fine brush, this is something you can do. I have expendable brushes, hang tight, and I will show you something that you can do with your brushes if you need a really fine one but don't have one to hand. Let me see, who can I sacrifice? That one, that's a sacrificial brush. So, say you've got a brush about this size, but you go, oh, I want something really, really small, right? So I just wet the edges, give it a bit of a twist, and then what you can do is just very gently do it at an angle like this. You can start very gently trimming it down into a fine point. So it's almost doing the same as a pencil sharpener does to a pencil. Trying to do this in shots, quite tricky. Now my scissors are a bit naff. They're used to cutting greater things than a tiny, teeny little. There we go. So as you're doing it, just rotate it ever so slightly. Snip at an angle. And just keep going until you're happy with sort of like the size of that you've then got. A little bit off the top there. Try and give all the hacks today. Anyway, you get the idea. So that's now a lot finer. So if I was to use that now, that would give me a much finer line. So, well, it's just trying to use things on a budget. I know lots of people don't, so you know they can't just go out and sort of buy a million brushes. So there we go. You see how that's given me a much finer line to work with. That's a lot easier, but we're not doing that today. So, because what I'm planning to do on top of this is we are going to ink on top of it and do some lovely line work on top. So all we're doing here really is getting those colours in to work with. A lot of watercolour books, guides, things like that, a lot of them seem to say go light to dark instead. You can if you want to, if that works for you. I'm not telling what you can and can't do. I'm just showing a technique that seems to work for me and what I do. Looks like we've got another quiet one tonight. Oh well. Oh, I'm glad you like it. These are the same guys again. They've done a few playlists now. I'll have to send them over to you. But all the music they make, it's original music, and they make it all copyright free and royalty free, so it doesn't get flagged up by YouTube or anything. So they make it for creators, which I think is really nice of them. Damn decent. They've got a really nice YouTube page as well, actually. I'll have to give them a shout out or something. So with these section where there's going to be lighter colouring, I tend to do a almost like a little teardrop or diamond. So do one side and then the other. And it leaves that inside creating those natural highlights again that I was talking about before. So we're very much using that negative space. Because, I mean, in the past, I've used a lot of white in watercolours, but for some reason, I find the white that you get in watercolours tends to be a bit chalky and a bit, I don't know, I just don't like the finish of it. I don't like the way it looks. It looks a bit, doesn't look bold enough to me. So if I do want to add white to things like this, I tend to use either an ink or a different type of paint, something that's a bit more opaque. My words are failing me today. Right, so we've pretty much finished with this particular colour. I think the work for the past few days has just completely frazzled my brain. It's like, nope, we're not working tonight. Sorry. Okay, so for this next colour, we need a warmer brown. So I'm thinking probably this one. Oh gosh, yeah, that's almost spot on. I'm just going to add a bit of yellow ochre to that, just to neutralise the red ever so slightly. And make it more of a ginger colour. There we go. touch more. There we go. That's the one. That's the one we want. Thank you for putting melody to my words failing me. Be much appreciated. Right. So hairs are quite interesting. This is one of the reasons I chose to use a hair, because even though from a distance they just look brown, they've got so many rich colours in between them. It's great. I can't remember if I put a announcement in the Discord channels. I'm pretty sure I did. I think I did all of them. Just everybody's busy. Right. Right, we need a bit more of a greyish tone now, so I'm going to add it directly to that leftover warm tone that we've got. I'm going to add a bit of blue to that as well. Right, let me see. Oh, it's appreciated. It's okay, that's fine. Just hope they pick up soon. Of course, the alternative is that, you know, it's Friday night. All the extroverts are out partying. How dare they? How dare they go out and have fun? I saw the teacup then, and I thought I had a minor hiccup then, thinking that I'd put it in my tea. It's like, no. No, it's the right teacup, it's fine. So So if you can, I'm not sure if it's picking up on the camera, but can you see now when I'm putting gentle colours over the top of those negative spaces, it's just adopting a lighter version of that colour, just giving a bit more depth again, something like we did with the ink work. I'll have to do one with my Inktense pencils as well, because I prefer to use them because they get some spectacular results. I find it a bit more natural as well. This is very much painting, whereas I find with the Inktense pencils it does just feel like drawing more than anything else, which is nice. Hi there, Blue. Thank you for coming. Thank you. Yeah, the medieval vibe is basically what we're going for most of these streams. With the candlelight streams, I feel it's a lot more effective than with these ones, but that's okay. It's just daytime in the studio instead of nighttime. Even though it is nighttime, it's just a daylight bulb. Because the magic of modern technology. I hope the music's coming through clearly enough. It can be difficult sometimes with the camera and me speaking as well, and streaming and all that kind of stuff. Hopefully it's coming through alright. Okay, I think we're nearly done with these colours now. these bolder brown colours. One thing I will say is that when I'm working with watercolours, this is probably evident by now if you've been watching, I tend to use them quite dry. I don't use a lot of water, so they tend to dry in no time. I don't know when I started doing that. It's just something that's sort of developed over time. But it is useful. It does mean that things do tend to dry a bit quicker. That means I can do a bit more work onto it because the paper's not quite as saturated. A lot of it just sits on top of each other. Very much so. Yes, watercolours very much do come with a cool down. But yeah, I think it's because I'm used to using inks more than I am sort of watercolours, so I use them in almost the way I would if I was drawing with ink. And this is going to sound really weird to say, but ink tends to be a lot drier than watercolours, just for application. You know, once it's on there, it's like, right, here I am. Whereas watercolours tend to be, the name suggests, they're quite wishy-washy, and just kind of go, oh wow, cool paper. What am I going to do here? Oh, I might go over here, or I might go over here. Nice. If you want to personify watercolours, of course, you don't have to. That's how they seem to behave. If you have any questions about what I'm doing while I'm doing it, by the way, feel free to ask. I'm more than happy to clear up any confusion or queries or anything like that, really. Unless future people aren't watching this live, and I'm not here, really, they're just watching the replay, then I can't help you, I'm sorry. You can send me a message, put a comment down. But I won't be able to help you in this video because I am a Time Lord. I won't be able to hear you. Why would you do that to yourself, Boo? This time of night? Your regrets will be many, my friend. Right, so with this bit now I've got most of the colours on, what I'm going to do is just for the shading areas where there's a bit more depth, I'm going to get some of that really deep muted blue. It's almost like a really deep navy one, this one. And I'm going to lightly, almost like a wash, just a bit more concentrated, go over those darker areas just to create a little bit more depth. One of my number one rules is I hate using just plain black or grey for shading. It really saps the life and colour out of an image, I think, if you do that, unless it is black and white, obviously. It doesn't make a difference. But if you're doing colour, I recommend using either, if it's slightly cooler an image, I recommend blues, and then if it's a slightly warmer image, so say there's candlelight or you generally want a bit of a warmer tone in your shading, then I use something like a purple. But I find blue tends to be best if you want something that's a bit cooler, and this one is a bit cooler. It looks like it's maybe autumn or winter where this hair is in the image, so cooler shading is required. There's no warm sun beating down. So even if that's just the singular thing that you do to change the way you do your art, if there's something missing, if you're shading with black and grey tones, try switching it up, try using colour. So for cold environments and cold shading, cool tones, use a nice blue. Obviously match it to be a cool blue, not a warm blue. I mean, I've used warm blues before, it didn't make that much of a difference, but blue is the vital part. Or if you want a nice warmer tone, then use some purples. Right, there's our little hair. Now we need to do the eye. So let me see if I can zoom in a little bit on the eye just to show you what I'm doing. Oh, might be a bit too far. A little bit less. Right, there we go. Okay, so with this, I just wanted to show you a bit closer what I was doing, because the eyes are one of my favourite bits to do. I absolutely love it. So what I tend to start off with, I don't start with the pupil. That's the last thing I do, really. Is I'll start off with the lightest colour of the eye. Now for this, it's that sort of yellowish brown ochre again. So I can't show you that, but it's this colour here. And I always start at the bottom of the eye, because that's the bit that's going to be receiving the most light, especially in this particular image. And then once I do that, I go in with the richer tone and what tends to be the darker tone, which for this hair is a really vibrant russet brown. And then wash off your brush. And I tend to like just try and pull that darker tone down into the light. So it gives that really lovely perception of like the brow is slightly shading the eye. That's why you're seeing that darker tone, and then it sort of moves into the lighter tone where the light's just catching it. Right, now do the pupil, which normally I just paint the whites in afterwards, like the light being caught on it. With this watercolour, I will just leave them out, like so. Now, I'm not going to use too much black on that because, like I said, I'm going to be doing some pen work on this. So I just want to get the idea. Now, just to finish this off, that blue that I was using before, the shading, I'm just going to put a little bit in this larger white space that I've left and just slightly blend it with the black edges, just to give that idea of reflection. And then immediately it looks a bit more alive than it did a few seconds ago, just by adding that reflection. So right, let me sip this tea before I start coughing again, because my throat is really dry, you can probably hear. And should I keep it zoomed there? Probably, just for a moment. Because the next thing we're going to be doing is inking. Once I've erased that line there that seems to have gone astray. That was from the initial sketch. Look, that was ages ago. Miles away. So long ago. Now, if you are erasing lines on your watercolour, I heartily recommend that you make sure it's dry first. I know mine is because I barely use any water, but if you are doing that, please make sure it's dry before you do that, otherwise you're going to smear it everywhere. And then you'll be really upset. And then you'll blame me and come back to my YouTube channel and go, oh, it's all your fault. You told me to erase the lines. So please don't do that. Oh no, there's no rewinding of mistakes here. Not when it comes to ink and things. Right, let's move this back. It's going to let me. Move back a little bit more, please. There we go, that will do. Right, now I'm going to get to the really fun bit. But we're going to be inking. Now, usually, I would use this pen for that. This is my lovely, it's a ballpoint pen, but it's a refillable one because using biros is not very sustainable and using single-use fine liners and things. So I do like to use reusable pens if I can. It's a worthy investment and it does save you time and money in the long run because you can buy refills instead of having to buy whole packs of pens, and you'll be saving the planet. So I heartily recommend getting yourself refillable pens if you can, instead of using single-use. Let's try and save the planet here. So yes, usually I'd be using that, but today we are going to be using this, which is my fountain pen, because we're on lovely, lovely watercolour paper, which is nice and thick and we'll be able to handle it. With this, what I have inside it is the Tom Studio No. 1 ink. It's made specifically for fountain pens, and this one is the deep black, which is lovely. It's water-based, non-toxic, and vegan as well, so there's no nasties in it. If you are worried about having animal products in your ink, always check. And I think Tom Studio mostly is vegan as far as I know. Anyway, worth checking if you are worried about that. So here, now we're going to do the fun bit. Now, just to give you an idea of what this pen's like, it's quite a fine nib. There's no chisel edge on it or anything. It's just one singular, I think it's a 1.5 nib. So it's not massive, but it's not teeny tiny either. But it suits my needs very, very well. So where I'm going to start is in this eye. I'm just going to go around the edge of the pupil. Now this may bleed a bit because I've not really left it much time to sort itself out, but I wanted to show you how I do my line work on stream, and time is getting on. So you know what? I'm going to take back what I said. We are not going to use this one for time reasons. I don't want it to be a total mess by the time I'm done. We are going to use the ballpoint pen. Just easier. So we're then going to make sure you take a look at your reference, see where the textures are. And this is where you get to really have fun making those deep blacks, really, really deep. And you can start doing lovely hair textures as well. So with this, with ballpoint, it's amazing what textures you can do. Now, what I've said in the ink ones before is always use directional lines. If you look at a picture like I'm looking at now, the reference of this hair, take a close look and you can see the direction of the fur. You can see some of them, the fur going around the edge of the eye is curving around the shape of the eye socket. You can see where it's changing direction on the nose and then changing direction again around the muzzle. So pay attention to that and do your lines in that direction. I promise you it makes all the difference. So I'm going very lightly with this one. So for really fine hairs, I like to just go in quite lightly, but maybe go over the same space a couple of times just to build up those layers. But I'm barely touching the paper there. So, and I'm just using a gentle curve motion. And just keep looking up at your reference and checking the direction of the fur that you're working on. So this guy, his fur becomes a bit coarser over here, so we're going to be a bit heavier with our pen until we get to the edges where we lighten up again to get that idea of fuzz and fur. There, so can you see how I'm using those directional lines to dictate the shape of the fur? So you've got one's going on here, one's jutting out here, and then a few that are just going over the top of the head there. So just keep that up. Be sure to check the length of the hairs as well. They're not all going to be tiny hairs. They do eventually get longer and longer and longer. So just be sure that if you're using a reference, just keep referring back to it. Make sure that you're getting it right. I like to do a few stray hairs here and there just so it's not too perfect. You don't want it looking too organised. I mean, these are wild animals. They like to run around and generally get themselves into mischief. So it's good to... You don't have to be super perfect with it. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's probably better that it's not, to be honest. See you later, Blue. Sorry, but not stupidly late, wasn't it? Because I'm busy rambling about directional lines. There you go, see? So it does tend to be proven by my stupid hair hobby. As long as you don't look like this hair, then you should be fine. This hair looks like he's been through it and seen things. I could have just picked a picture of a normal hair, but this guy just looks so unbelievably haunted. I thought, I've got to draw him. Looks like he's been spooked by something. Now, what I will say is that you don't have to do every single hair, right? I mean, as in hairs on the body as opposed to hair, because that's not confusing. You don't have to do every single one. It's just I tend to go a bit mad with detail, as is evident from my work. But if you wanted to, you could just do impressions of fur. So, say I'm just doing this bit. If I wanted to just do an impression of it, I just do a few clumps of directional lines like this. And it works just as well. It's just as effective. If I do a bit more like that, they're done this way. It particularly works with finer sections. So if you've got like big puffs of fluff all over it, you can just do that as well. So you don't have to do every single fibre of fur and every follicle of hair that this creature has. It does tend to help doing, that didn't make any sense. It does help with varying your texture. So with hairs, especially around this area, it's all very dense fur, and then as it comes further down, it's lighter and fluffier. So that's where not doing every single line actually benefits you. See? So how it makes it go from really dense fur down to this lovely lighter fur instead. So it does help a great deal. Now what I will say is that if you are planning to do something this detailed and in depth, I mean this isn't the most detailed I've ever done, I'm just doing a quick example for this particular stream. But if you did want to go super detailed, and this is popcorn and kettle black here, I never do it, but take lots of breaks for your hand, because your hand will start to hurt a lot from doing all these repeated tiny minuscule little actions for hours at a time. I say this like I practice what I preach. I don't. I tend to sort of, once I get into an artwork, I really I just lose track of time, I lose all sense, and I just want to get it done. So don't be like me, don't do that. Please give your hands breaks. Please. If you take anything away from this stream, please take that. This is quite a bit dry, so we're going to try with the fountain pen again, just to give you an example of how it looks. There we go, so that's much easier to work with. I find with the fountain pen you can be a lot lighter with it and a lot freer, whereas with the bar you are sort of digging into it a bit. So this is better. It just wasn't great around there because it was still a bit damp. See, the fur is starting to get longer but denser here as well, so we're going to close up those lines again and start making them a bit more compacted. But yeah, I mean, what's the time now? That just gone 9 from here, so this is about an hour's worth of just painting and drawing. So you can get a lot done in a short period of time. You just have to find those techniques that make it work for you, really. And this is by far not my best work, and it's not the best thing I'll ever do. It is quite rushed. If I had more time, I would do a more in-depth one. I am hoping to do future streams where I'm working on a singular artwork for a long period of time, so you can see it over multiple streams. But that's for something in the future when I can work on a bit of a larger scale again, which I can't really do at the moment given my circumstances. So I am somewhat restricted to A4 and smaller at the moment. Could probably manage an A3, but you get what I mean. Right, you can't even see what I'm doing there, can you? I've moved off the screen. Let me move this back to where it was. There we go. There we go. Much better. Right, I'm just going to do a cursory set of dividing lines for these ears, just so I don't go completely mad and lose track of which ear I'm doing. See how they form together here? Well, not form together, but they're so close together it would be easy to sort of lose track of which ear is which. So we're going to outline them first. The same with the ears. Because the hairs are so fine, if I went over and did every single one with the speed I'm doing this at, it's going to look really unnatural. It's going to look very, very strange. So we're just going to do areas for now. You wouldn't be a creative and you wouldn't be an artist if you didn't somehow find a way to make it harder for yourself. It's just our nature. Making it harder than it needs to be. So yeah, like I said, this is a very quick version of what I would be doing. I would be taking a lot more time on each section, were I not trying to just do a tutorial stream, really. Is the truth of it. This was more about just showing techniques that I like to use instead of trying to make a picture perfect piece, which is why it's in a sketchbook. Yeah, get some whiskers on there. Bit I missed down there. Oops. Just a whole section, look at that. Even the eye a little bit. Right, there we go. So that's, yeah, just to give you an idea of what I tend to do when I do some watercolours and play around with them. I suppose the main takeaway is just explore, have fun, and find techniques that work for you. You don't have to stick to tutorials. I call this a tutorial. It's not really. It's just showing techniques that work for me. But I hope it helps. I hope some of these sort of tips and techniques that I use will come in handy for you as well. Let's lift him up so you can have a proper gander at him. So, don't know how close we can get for the fur, but yeah. One slightly psychotic looking hair. Just for you guys. So yeah, I hope you really enjoyed that, or at least found something useful to take away from it. Thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate that. Next stream that's planned will be on Tuesday. I might try and do a few impromptu streams as well if I'm drawing anyway. If I'm doing something anyway, then I'll try and stream it if I can. Get some of those stream hours in. But yeah, enjoy. And I'll stick a picture of this on my Instagram as well, so people can see it a bit better. I'll scan it through so it's a bit clearer. So thanks so much, guys, and hope you have a wonderful rest of what is either your day, morning, afternoon, evening, whatever it is. Have a good one. Bye, guys.